And today we celebrate National Tempeh Day on June 6th. And we have two special guests who will share their experiences in spreading tempeh all around the world.
Exactly, and funny you should say around the world, because joining us this morning we have Putri Gremmer from Tempeh Granada, and also we have Driando, Ahnan, Winarno from Indonesian Tempeh Movement. Good morning, Mas Ando, and good evening, Mbak Putri.
Good evening.
Hi guys, thank you so much
Hi.
for joining us this morning. So we're going to start off with Mbak Putri, where I say good evening because you're currently living in the Caribbean islands. So how did you come up with the idea of making tempeh and establishing Tempeh Granada? Tell us about it.
Well, when I came to the island, there was nobody selling any tempeh, and it's just no way to get tempeh around. And I love tempeh, and I said that, well, this is it. I'm going to my own tempeh and trying to spread the goodness of tempeh around the island, and I can say through the Caribbean island. Yeah.
Was it difficult, by the way, getting the ingredients? Because I know that at tempeh, there's a particular type and quality of ingredients that you're looking for. And is that available easily in the Caribbean?
Well, fortunately, actually, there are plenty of beans, grains, legumes in the island because of the people itself. They enjoy a lot of eating beans and grains or legumes. However, soybean is not their thing. So myself and Tempeh Grenada, it's focused on soy-free tempeh. So that's more about
I was
our
just going to
tempeh.
ask because you can make tempeh out of different beans and different kinds of nuts and beans.
Right.
And, I was just going to ask. So it's no soy. Interesting. That's really interesting. But onto Mas Ando, though. Indonesian tempeh movement is a continuous action. I think we've spoken to one of your representatives before as well on the show. And from the International Conference on Tempeh in Yogyakarta, there's an international conference on tempeh, Paul. Back in 2015, why did you decide to continue making tempeh, especially the gastrodiplomacy part of it?
Yes, because I think tempeh is unique because I can't think of any other food that has the same dimension in terms of affordability, sustainability, and nutritional quality, right? If you think about it, every country, like either developed or the so-called developing, everybody would need this affordable, nutritious, and sustainable source of protein. So it's very relevant for those people, for example, who want to improve the diet, who want to lower the risk of chronic diseases in developed countries due to overnutrition, and at the same time in developing countries who want to improve nutritional quality because of undernutrition. So we see that tempeh is this strategic connection that in every part of the world, people would need this kind of food. And plus, how many of these kind of food that you can think of that is made naturally? So with tempeh, it's fun, like what Bu Putri has been doing. Is natural. You can make it at home and you can enjoy this versatile and delicious food.
You're right, and I can speak from my own personal experience. I'm a gym guy. I like to exercise, and a lot of people are onto this, plant-based diet kick lately as well. And one of the most common, in fact, I would say the most common, apart from maybe tofu, the substitute for meat or animal protein is tempeh, especially here in Indonesia. And it's so easy to find everywhere. And I find that it's such a great thing for me to have as part of my diet, whether or not you do eat animal protein or not. So a lot of good points there. Now, let's go back to Mbak Putri for a moment, because as we can see on social media, Tempeh Granada has successfully crafted various creations and variations of tempeh itself. But what are some of the challenges that you face? We mentioned ingredients perhaps being some of them because soy is not readily available. And how has tempeh been received all the way there in the Caribbean islands?
Well, it wasn't easy, to be honest, because people in Caribbean in general, they do not accept food that is not relate to their food.
Okay.
And especially when it comes to fermentation, it's not their thing. And they think fermentation means something, it's spoiled,
It's gone
something
bad.
bad. Yeah, but it takes some time. It takes a couple of months and even a year. But of course, due to COVID and pandemic, it slows down. But now it gets better, and we try to do our best to combined with the local flavor, so they get, to taste a different thing, and especially when you start explaining what is the health benefit, and from there they welcome the food easily with no problem.
So I'm sure you have kind of like fusion variations of tempeh as well. What are some of the more popular ones that the locals there have taken to?
Oh yeah, they enjoy a lot the chickpeas and black beans because that's their thing.
Yes, definitely.
Because locally, people, they enjoy black beans because from their ancestor or their old grandmother, they enjoy lots of Caribbean food or African food that contains lots of beans in general. So that's the best kind of beans that actually you can introduce to the local, which is black beans and chickpeas in general.
Yeah, it's not really a far cry if you think about it, because considering the types of food that they have there, it's not really that much different.
But what Putri is doing is great, especially because the prices of soybean have been rising recently in the world, and a lot of people have started to substitute the soybeans to lots of different things. I've seen almonds. I've seen lots of different fruits and nuts as well, and that's all possible. So that's creation for you there, Putri. But back to Mas Ando, you've spread the tempeh virus to the world now. So far, you've introduced tempeh to 13 countries. What were their responses like, and which countries did you find mostly memorable and surprised that they actually, it's become like another popular thing there too?
Right, thank you. Yeah, it's been quite a while. So the most interesting one, I would say India, because so I went to Mumbai. India has a very strong flavor profile in their foods, right? And tempeh just seamlessly got into these types of food. And for example, when I went to the street hawkers in Mumbai, we got this called vada pav. So it's basically like fried burger patty made of potatoes, heavily seasoned and put into 2 slabs of bread like burger. And tempeh fits in those kind of dishes, because in Indonesia we see this like strong flavored dishes like tempeh orek, right? It's very strong, and then tempeh bacem is very strong. So that I didn't think about it, but then wow, it went into these dishes very seamlessly. And I would say the US is also very interesting, because the plant-based wave is coming, and people, like Bu Putri said, people are willing to try new kinds of beans, especially it's quite similar like chickpeas, black beans, navy beans, and that is both with North America and South America. So North America typically like beans fermented into tempeh, then they would cook it in the classic Western way, right? They just pan fry it and with paprika powder and salt and pepper. But in South America, they're more explorative, so make tempeh from these beans, then eat it with brown rice and guacamole and salsa.
Ooh, I can try that.
So guacamole is just like the sambal. You dip tempeh into guacamole. Yeah, I would say those 2 regions, I would say.
Now, just out of curiosity, what do you think about foreigners who've lived in Indonesia and go back home and actually bring and introduce tempeh? Because I actually heard of a story of I think there's tempeh being sold in a London market, and the people who sent it were actually students who studied in Indonesia for a couple of years, and then they brought home tempeh because, it's a very, very great thing. What do you think about foreigners also coming here and then realizing, oh, this is great, and help, spread the tempeh virus?
Yeah, I would say it's a great thing, because like the Indonesian tempeh movement's purpose is we want to spread the love for tempeh, right? Because if we spread the love for tempeh, we give people access to, again, affordable, sustainable, and nutritious sources of protein. But the problem with tempeh is that somehow it has this negative stigma for so long that, it's not a cool food, it's traditional, it's old-fashioned, right? Especially in my generation. So I think one of the best things that we can do is to break that barrier. And to break that barrier, we have many different dimensions that we can do. One of them is somehow like seeing tempeh internationally. When we start to see that people outside of Indonesia appreciating tempeh, then that's the point where we might get to think like, is tempeh that cool? these people are appreciating it outside of Indonesia. So that is one of the most important things, and that's why the Indonesian tempeh movement has been also focusing to promote tempeh internationally, not just nationally.
I think that's a good point, because sometimes I think it takes an outsider point of view, like a complete blank slate, in order for us to kind of see this in a new light, as opposed to we grew up in the traditional ways. I mean, you mentioned tempeh bacem and tempeh orek. Those are my two favorite tempehs too, but those are very traditional ways of cooking tempeh. And you mentioned it with guacamole, and only hit me right now, like, wow, that would go great.
Why haven't I
together
tried
as well.
that before?
Exactly, because we're very much stuck in the way we're cooking and the way we do things at home. But Putri, back to you for a second. What are your thoughts in using tempeh as Indonesia's gastrodiplomacy, and how do you think we can continue preserving this culinary heritage?
Well, yeah, for me, from my side, I mean, I lived abroad for almost 20 years, and that's what I'm trying to do. Just, talk about it and introduce about tempeh, and of course, if possible, if you can let them try and non-stop educate people and tell them or share with them what is the benefit or the goodness of tempeh. And people would more or less, or in the future, later or sooner, people will understand that food doesn't have to be fancy. Food doesn't have to be meat all the time, because like Dr. Ando says that plant-based food can be good food too. Doesn't have to be meat all the time. And we start to teach our small kids, young people, to understand that being healthy start from simple food. Doesn't have to be hard, and just keep trying until you think, oh, this is actually good, and never stop to introduce or to spread the word.
And if I may add one last point, good food and healthy food doesn't have to be expensive, because you can find that tempeh is
Doesn't
also
have to be
very
expensive.
affordable
Yeah.
as well. And there's so many ways you can prepare it. How about, Mas Ando, back to you. Any last words or any thoughts in using tempeh as Indonesia's gastrodiplomacy?
Yes, so when I was a student in the US, all my life, I was just hopping from one Indonesian embassy or consulate general to another. So it tells something that actually the Indonesian government is paying attention to this as a diplomacy, as a gastrodiplomacy, right? And the question is why? Right. So half jokingly, if I were a president, I would nominate tempeh as like Indonesia's #1 food. Why? Because so what I did was I did research when I was doing my PhD on tempeh. So I was comparing tempeh with beef. Nutritionally, sustainability, and affordability. And this is the main reason. So compared to beef, tempeh contains similar amounts of protein and energy and iron. I was mind blown. Then it contains significantly higher amounts of fiber and calcium. I was mind blown again. And it contains significantly lower amounts of saturated fat and salt. So tempeh is that healthy. Tempeh is not less than beef. Like, can you think of any other food that's like that? Probably not. And in terms of sustainability, tempeh uses like 4 times less energy to produce and emits 20 times less greenhouse gas emission to produce for the same amount of protein. So much more sustainable than beef. And affordability, like in Indonesia, it can be very cheap. It can be like 8 times cheaper than beef. So I can't think of any other food that can beat tempeh in this regard. It can even replace beef. So what else are we waiting for? It's the perfect food for gastrodiplomacy, just because it's the better option for the environment, for our health, and for our economy.
Some great points there being made. Thank you both so much for taking the time to joining us this morning or evening. And happy National Tempeh Day, by the way,
Happy
to both
National
of you.
Tempeh Day.
Tempeh Day.